So make yourself comfortable on your back with your legs long and your arms by your sides. And if that does not feel like a comfortable position, then keep your knees bent and your feet standing. Now, if you've chosen to put a cushion under your head to be more comfortable, consider for a moment what changes when your head is on the cushion. Yeah, and that's a great idea. Some of you might actually compare. Well, why is my head on the cushion? What is the difference? You could have your head on the cushion for a moment, take it away, and see if you can actually get a feeling, maybe not the particular muscle, but the area that changes its sensation. And then settle your head in whatever configuration is most comfortable. You might take off your glasses, put them somewhere you're not going to be worried about them, and give yourself a few moments to settle into the floor. It could be useful to take a moment to register how you're showing up for this event, whether this is first or second lesson, or if you've been doing this for a while. There's a lot that you can learn about yourself by simply observing the way that you enter into a process like this, into a lesson like this. Now, my little asterisk about this lesson is that there are some movements that are characteristic in certain realms of fitness. It's imperative that you constantly remind yourself this is not an exercise class. The objective is not to get somewhere with the movements. And in fact, for our purposes today, because I had a little spoiler alert, I told you that this lesson has something to do with the Psoas. Consider when you're doing the movements, not specifically what muscles you're using, but more if you can start to get a sense of the holistic sense of the movements. And some of you might actually challenge yourselves today to move even slower and do even less than you usually do. So bring your attention to all the places that you can feel the floor touching the back side of you. And in particular, feel the area in the back of your pelvis, the area of the small of your back, and the back ribs. And find out if you actually have a clear sense of your ribs on one side or the other side. And if you were to imagine that there was 12 ribs on the back on each side, how many would you say you can sense? Maybe it's 3 or 4 or 5. Are your ribs kind of clustered in a certain area in your awareness? Are they spread out? Maybe you don't even know for sure where your ribs are. So see how you start to form an image of yourself in that way. And then also consider the way that your right and your left shoulder are making contact with the floor. And see if you can consider that your right shoulder blade is intimately connected to your right collarbone. And then your left shoulder blade is intimately connected to your left collarbone. And when you think of this area of your shoulder blade and your collarbone, between your shoulder blades, can you sense the junction between the base of your neck and the top of your shoulders? And then ever so slightly and gently roll your head a little bit left and right. And see, as you do that movement, Can you feel anything in your shoulder blades or in your collarbones or elsewhere? And then leave that and bring your attention from the back of your skull down the length of your spine to the back of your pelvis, to your tailbone. And from the back of your pelvis, see if you can imagine / sense where your right hip joint is, where your right thigh connects to the hip. And feel all the places that your right leg touches the floor. And then compare that from the left hip joint down the left leg. And see if one of your legs actually touches the floor more, or if one of your legs touches the floor in a different place than the other. So if it was like a stripe of contact, is the stripe of contact slightly to the right or to the left on one leg or the other? And now bring your attention to your breathing. And get a sense of how holistic your breathing feels this morning. It's humid, a little sticky. Maybe you were out last night. So overall, get a sense of if your breathing seems a little bit isolated to one area or one characteristic of movement, or if there's more of a sense of breadth and diversity of movement when you're breathing. Now bring your attention back to this line from one hip joint down the length of the leg to the heel, and then the other hip joint down the length of the other leg to the other heel. And now start with whichever leg you can sense better, you have a clearer sense of. If it's the same, just choose one. And a few times start to do the slightest, gentlest movement of bending one knee and then straightening it back out again. Just a little bit, not a complete bend, just a little bend. And do it so small that you start to feel where the contact of your leg peels away from the floor, what part of your leg lifts away from the floor, what part of your leg stays on the floor. And see if you can actually reduce the effort in that movement. So if there was a line that went from your hip joint to your foot, within that line there would be your hip joint, your knee joint, your ankle joint. So see, as you bend at your knee joint, are there other joints that also respond? Is there one particular muscular contraction, maybe in the abdomen, the groin? Just see how that feels. Did your breathing change? Yeah, and then go ahead and try that on the other side. Just a very slight bending of the other knee, going slow enough that you can listen for where the initial engagement is for that movement. And then go back to the first knee, and now do the same movement, but as you bend your knee, let your knee point to the side slightly. So for example, if you're bending your right knee, let your right knee bend slightly to the right. So you might have to rotate your arm bone slightly. Your leg bone. Okay, now see what feels different if you keep your knee parallel with the ceiling and you bend it. And then a few times compare, but make the movement a little bit broader. So when you have your knee rotated outward, you bend it enough that your heel moves in the direction of your bum. And then when you have the knee oriented to the ceiling, you also bend it enough that your heel moves in the direction of your bum. Okay, and then leave that and go ahead and on your own, just do a little self-investigation on the other side, finding out how do you organize your legs, your back, your belly, your hips for this bending movement, either in parallel or rotated outward. And take note if it's actually easier for you to do the movement on one side or the other side. Okay, and then leave that. And again, feel your contact overall with the floor. And feel your breathing. Now, thoughtfully choose the most comfortable way for you to move. And when you're ready, first bend one knee and bring a foot to stand, and then bend the other knee and bring the other foot to stand. But, be thoughtful about it. You could even sort of do some false starts. Just see, for you, what would be the most comfortable trajectory for you to bring your legs to a bent position. And then once you've found that journey, that pathway, then keep your knees bent and your feet standing. And then once you've come to the position of having your feet standing with your knees bent, move the cushion from under your head if you do have it. You won't use it again unless you really feel like you need it when we're resting. And now feel the way that your spine makes contact with the floor with the feet in this situation. And see if you can get a sense of the relationship, like we talked about when you were standing, between your pelvis and your feet. Where is the comfortable place? Are your ankles wider than your hip joints or narrower? Do you turn one of your feet in more than the other one? Maybe your feet turn in but your knees turn out, or vice versa. So you don't need to fix it. There's not a right way to do it, but it is important to begin this process of really acknowledging, okay, well, what are the habits that I have that I can start to identify? Now, take your right ankle and place it on your left knee, like you were sitting in a sort of cross-legged position. But your ankle on your knee, not your knee on your knee. That's it, yeah. And then take your left hand and like a little flipper hand, no opposable thumbs, use your hand like a little flipper hand and hold on to the bottom of your left arch with bottom of your right arch with your left hand. But your thumb stays next to your fingers like your hand was a flipper. So don't separate your thumb. That's it. But hold onto your arch. You got it, yeah. Under the arch of your foot. Yeah, and if you can't reach your foot, then hold somewhere near your foot, but only with the left hand. And then put your right hand behind your head. So your left hand is somewhere on your foot, on your ankle, on your pants. If you can't reach there, maybe on your knee, wherever you can reach. And then your right hand is behind your head. And then have your right elbow toward the ceiling and feel your hand under your head and start to do the slightest movement of just lifting your head with your hand. Just a little bit, comfortable amount, and bringing it back down. Just do that a few times, very slight amount, lifting your head and bringing it back down. Keep your elbow lifted toward the ceiling so you're less likely to strain your neck. Keep your elbow near your head. And see if you can feel, as you lift your head, what happens on the parts of you that you're laying on. What parts of you go more into the floor? Okay. And then leave that for a second. You can bring your right hand down. And now feel where your left hand is making contact with your foot or your ankle or your pants, wherever it can reach. And start to do the slightest, just a few millimeters, slightest movement of lifting your foot in the direction of the ceiling. Yeah, I was just going to say, what happens, sorry, lifting your right foot. What happens if you bring this foot, the left foot, closer to you on the floor? Yeah, exactly. And then what happens if you hold on here? Is that possible? Yeah. There you go. Yeah, that's great. But yeah, exactly. Don't pinch your hands. Hold your flipper hand. Yeah. And then with your hand, lift your foot just a few centimeters into the sky and then bring it back down with your hand. Yeah, maybe hold your hand under. That's it. But not with your thumb opposed, with your fingers. You got it. Good. That's it. Okay, and similarly, as you're lifting your foot, even if it's just a few millimeters, centimeters, what do you feel changing on the parts of you that you're laying on? Okay, leave it for a second. Bring your other foot down. Have your knees bent, your feet standing. And then again, same organization, same foot-knee situation. Put your right ankle on your left knee again, same side that you just did. And reach down with your right hand. Hold on to the bottom of your left foot. Did you switch sides, or did you do that side in the first place? Okay, just stay with the side that you're on.
The left hand or right hand?
Your left hand on your right foot. This is the same side you're just on, right?
Yes. Does it have to be the same side?
Same side, exact same thing you just did. Just do it again. Same exact position. Put your right hand behind your head again. Yep. And now this time, have your elbow close to your head again. And find out if you can move in a very delicate way to both lift your head and lift your leg toward the ceiling simultaneously. Keep your left foot on the floor. And if you think, well, geez, that takes a lot of effort, then say, okay, so let me find out what's the way I could do it if I sort of clamp my teeth or crunch my abs or crunch my anus, and then see, okay, well, what does she mean? Is there a possibility to do this movement with less effort? Be clear about this, guys. You have your hands on two places. One hand is behind your head, one hand is on your foot, right? So use your hands to lift both parts. That's it. Exactly. It doesn't have to be a lot. Exactly. And as you use your hands to lift both parts, feel where do you get support in your back and in your pelvis? What parts of your back and pelvis go down into the floor as your head and your foot and your leg lift up toward the ceiling? Okay, leave that, but keep your feet in this situation. Just take a little rest with your arms and your back. Now this time, interlace both of your hands behind your head. And bring your elbows toward each other. Now feel where your left foot is standing on the floor. Your right ankle is somewhere over your left knee. And start to do another micro movement of bringing your left knee in the direction of your chest. And then bringing it back. So your legs are still crossed in the same situation, but you're lifting your left leg, which takes the right leg with you, Can you feel how you're doing that? Where are you recruiting your strengths? What are you doing with your breathing, your mouth, your throat? And then a few times lift the head as you bring your left knee in towards you. See if that makes lifting your knee a little bit easier. Again, check that your elbows are close enough toward each other that there should be minimal pressure, if any, at the base of your neck. You're really using your hands to lift your head. And if you're doing it and you're thinking, geez, sucks, this is hard work, stop doing it that way and find out, well, is there another way you could do it? Which you guys know, one way could be imagining it, right? Okay, but for now, leave it and take a rest on your back. Bring your legs down, bring your arms down. Feel your contact with the floor, and in particular, start to listen to if there's any subtle difference in the right and the left hip, the right and the left side of the low back, maybe even the ribs. And roll your head just a little bit left and right and see how that goes. In particular, if you roll your head and there's kind of a bit of a hiccup where it's smooth, and then it's a little sticky, make the movement tinier, tinier, tinier until it's just smooth. It doesn't matter how small it is, but it's such a smooth movement of moving your head, you could just sit here and do it all day. Okay, leave it. Go back to the same position that you were in. Bend both knees. Cross your right ankle over your left. Put both of your hands behind your head. But now this time, straighten your right leg toward the ceiling. So lift your right leg and straighten it toward the ceiling. Straighten it comfortably straight. Doesn't have to be perfectly straight. But so the bottom of your foot is more or less facing the ceiling, and keep it there, floating in the air. Now this time, you'll lift your head and keep it lifted a comfortable amount. And with your head lifted, start to describe a circle as though there was some paint on the bottom of your foot, and you wanted to draw a circle on the ceiling. You decide how big the circle is. And decide how big the circle is based on what is the most comfortable and accessible for you. So compare, see. Maybe a bigger circle is nicer, maybe a smaller circle. And notice how quickly you're making the circle. And decide, is that your place of learning? If you feel a strong sensation, your brain is listening to the strong sensation. So if you do, then you might try to slow down the movement so that your brain can be more attuned to listening to subtleties instead of listening to strong sensation, right? Okay, take a little pause for a moment. And then, as you're ready, come back and try it again, except this time try your circle in the opposite direction. And see that as you're making your circle, that it's a circle of your whole leg. Not just your ankle, not your knee. Your whole leg is making a circle in space. Your head is lifted, your elbows are toward each other. And you're only doing as much as you can so that you can at the same time feel, okay, well, what is actually happening here? Where do I feel there's a lot of effort? Is it possible I can reduce the effort? Is there a way I could do this slower? And notice, as you're making a circle with your whole leg, is it really a circle, or is part of it a circle and then it sort of becomes like a little bit snipped off into a bit of a diamond or a triangle? So play with it and find out, well, geez, what is that circumference size in order to maintain a circular circle, right? That's it. Okay, and then take a rest on your back. Sense the line of your right leg and your left leg again. Notice if there's any difference in the way that you feel each of those lines. And then again, as you bring your feet to standing, be conscious of how you choose to do that and find out what is a comfortable way. Maybe it's different on the right leg and the left leg. What is the most comfortable way for you to slide your feet back to standing? And then once both of your feet are standing, take your left ankle and put on your right knee. And hold on to the bottom of your left foot with your right hand, like a little flipper hand, your thumb next to your fingers. And if you can't quite reach the arch of your foot, then hold on under your ankle, under your calf. But see if you can hold under instead of over. Like under the limb. You're good. No, you're good like you were. Oh, I'm sorry, you're just adjusting yourself. When you bring your hand back, put your hand under your leg instead of, yeah, you got it. And not because I said so, although maybe, but see if you can feel what's the difference with your shoulder, if your hand is on top or your hand is on bottom. See if you can feel that the position of your shoulder changes. Yeah? And then put your other hand behind your head. And as gently and observant as possible, start to very gently lift your head and your foot toward the ceiling. Or for some of you, it might be more like toward each other. Lift your top leg away from the bottom leg. Remember, the word here is lift. So you're using your hand to lift your foot. Your hand will lift your foot, maybe lift your leg. And as opposed to thinking of bringing your face near your foot, think of the parts of you that you're laying on. And where could you recruit support from your back ribs, from your waist area, from your low back area, maybe even from your shoulders. That's it. Yeah, just what's easy. Just a small amount that's easy. Okay, and then take a little rest. Roll your head a little bit left and right. Make sure you're not building up any tension in that area. And again, like my little advisor at the beginning of the lesson, the work here is not to hold on to the instructions and try to recreate what it is I'm asking you to do. The work is to observe what are you actually doing. And then your nervous system is actually going to be dialed into that on an unconscious level, far beyond the degree that you are on a conscious level. But you can follow suit with your conscious awareness. Okay, so come back, bend your knees, stand your feet, put your left ankle on your right knee. Put both of your hands behind your head. Bless you. Have your elbows alongside your head. Feel where your right foot is standing on the floor. And now ever so gently, start to bring your right knee into your chest and also start to lift your head in the direction of your right knee. Just in the direction, not goal-oriented. There's zero advantage of how close your knee and your head come. It's just the movement. And then do your own homework a little bit and see, okay, well, where am I holding a little bit? You know, do I flex my ankle as I lift my knee? Is that something that supports me or not? Maybe it actually helps me lift my knee if I bend my ankle. Maybe it actually makes it harder. When you lift up, find out, is it better for you to inhale or to exhale?
The leg lift, That's the movement.
You're just lifting, all you're doing is lifting your right leg from the floor, yeah? Okay. And again, take a rest. And you could lengthen yourself out and again come back to the sense of yourself making contact with the floor. And again, listening for if there's any further changes in the places that you feel your legs touching the floor, your low back, your hips. And take a moment and notice the way that your breathing is moving across your chest. And then bend your knees and stand your feet. Cross your left ankle over your right knee. Put both of your hands behind your head. And then have both of your elbows facing the ceiling. But make sure you're not squeezing, right? Check that you're not squeezing with your hands, your wrists, the base of your neck. And now, straighten your left leg toward the ceiling and lift your head away from the floor. So your left leg is reaching toward the ceiling. Your right foot is still standing on the floor. And your head is only lifted as high as you can without strain. You can breathe, you're comfortable. Left leg is lifted, the head is lifted, the head stays lifted. And then you start to make a circular shape with your entire left leg. You were drawing a circle in space or drawing a circle along the floor, the ceiling. Keep moving toward comfort. Keep finding out not what did you feel on the other side, but with a fresh mind, what do I discover on this side? Oh, this side I need to do small circles. This side I need to do big circles. And again, if it feels like you have control in one area and then it kind of wings off, play with that and find out maybe the place that you have your leg in space needs to be slightly adjusted. If your leg was a little bit more to the left or the right, would that make it easier for you to make a circle? That's it. Okay. And then leave it. Bring everything down. Lengthen out your legs and your arms. Roll your head out a little bit left and right. And then leave it and try to get a sense of your overall body weight going down into the floor. And now roll to your side and come up to sit with your feet on the floor in front of you. And actually, you choose. If it's comfortable for you to sit cross-legged, then do. If cross-legged isn't accessible, then sit with the bottoms of your feet together. But if you can comfortably sit cross-legged, then do. And if not, then sit exactly so that your right knee is bent, and you're going to pick up your right leg so that your right foot is in your left hand, and your right knee is in your right hand. You're going to pick up your own right leg so that your left hand is on your right foot, if you can reach it. Yeah, if you want to start with the left guy, that's okay. Both hands are on your right lower leg. So your left leg might be bent, your left leg might be straight, and it might take a few moments to figure out, well, how do I do that? And then see that you've got your little flipper hands so that your left hand is under your right foot, if you can reach it. Your right hand is under your right knee, if you can reach it. And that your leg is as parallel as possible without any strain on your knee or your hip. Now see that you're as comfortable as possible on your sitting bones, which means that your bottom leg might be bent. Because now you're going to do a very gentle movement of bringing your leg toward you and bringing your head toward your leg. You're going to bring your leg toward your head and your head toward your leg. So do it a few times aggressively and get that out of your system. Yank it up there, clench your teeth, flex your biceps, and then throw that out the window, come back to Feldenkrais class and say, okay, I don't ever have to get my head anywhere near my leg. Those are just two places. And what does she mean? How would I use my whole self so that the movement, here's the key word, the movement is that the leg is moving upward toward you and your head is moving downward simultaneously. How could you move your pelvis? How could you move your spine? How could you work with your breathing? Doing a lot of good there. And overall, what do you do? Okay. And then leave it and take a rest. You can rest in sitting. You can rest laying on your back. In fact, do rest on your back. Take a rest on your back. You're already putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And then come up to sit again. And position yourself so that you take the bottom of your left leg in both of your hands. And you could think of like as though your leg was like a platter and you wanted to hold on to the platter. So one hand is on the knee end of your leg and one hand is on the foot end of your leg. So not both hands on your foot, but one hand on your knee, one hand at your foot area, both ends of your lower leg. See if you can put your right hand under it. Yeah. Is that manageable? If it's not, then just don't do it at all. Yeah. Because if you think about it, I know it sounds like a cop-out, like I don't want to think about it, I want to do it, but if you think about it, you will activate the same process in your brain as if you don't do it. In fact, let's all try that. So take your hands down, have your feet as comfortable in front of you as you can, and now 100% with your imagination, start by feeling where you're sitting, how you're sitting on your bum, right? On the bottom of your pelvis. And then 100% in your imagination, imagine that you were going to bend both of your knees out to the side and reach forward. And with your right hand, you were going to scoop underneath your left foot. And then again, in your imagination, with your left hand, you're going to scoop under your left knee. So already for you, in your imagination, that's going to require you to do something with your head and your shoulders. And then in your imagination, as you're holding this thing in your hands, and this is so key, if you wanted to bring this object slightly upward, how could you use your spine, how could you shift your weight to make it a teeny bit easier to lift this thing? Just 100% imagining it. Can you feel your spine rolling in your imagination? Yeah, can you? Some of you are doing a little bit without even realizing. Can you feel your head moving? Some of you might be moving your eyes. And then you choose. Either continue to imagine it, or if you'd like, then go ahead and try it a few times. And you might first do it the way that feels like it makes sense, and then see, well, is there any other way to do it? And if you're imagining it, the same thing. You can imagine the way you're imagining it, and then is there another possibility you could imagine? Yeah. What if you use your arms less? What would that mean to use your arms less? Yeah. Maybe the movement's not as big, but it looks a lot more comfortable. That's it. Okay, super. Let it go. Roll on your back. Feel your contact with the floor. The most common culprit of low back pain has to do with an organization of our hips and our legs. So essentially, if you want to move comfortably, there has to be an agreement between the parts of you that are stabilizing and the parts of you that are mobilizing. So in a lesson like this, it's easy to get caught up in the movements, especially if they're challenging, or a desire to make them look or feel a certain way. And what we're actually interested in exploring in a lesson like this is this secret recipe of teaching your brain auxiliary parts of yourself to conduct a primary action. So for example, if you have a tight psoas, that might create some kind of shortening or tightening in your low back tissues. And you could stretch your psoas all day long, but it's not going to change the position that your psoas is established, because for whatever number of events in your life, neurologically, this is how you have determined you want to support yourself. What you can do is start to resource the accessories to your psoas so that your psoas isn't always leading the brigade in your actions. So a lesson like this is not actually ever about, can you do the action? It's about doing these variations that allows you to use yourself in a slightly different way, and incredibly gives your brain the potential to take all that new information, put it back together and organize the whole system in a new way. Okay? So now find your way to bend your knees and stand your feet again. And have your feet fairly wide apart and your knees fairly wide apart. Comfortably wide apart, let's say. And then feel the contact of your right foot on the floor and start to do a very subtle movement of bringing your right leg in toward the midline and then back to where it is. Not out, just in toward the midline and then back out. If you go slow enough, you might be able to feel several parts of yourself that are either consciously or unconsciously involved in this action.
What's the action?
Just bringing the right leg a little bit toward the midline and then back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Start to feel.
I don't know what you feel.
Know what to say.
I said if you go slow enough, you might notice that there's a few different places that there's sensation when you do that movement. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you do the movement, you don't feel anything. But you see, can you keep your left leg quiet and just isolate the movement so that your right knee comes toward the midline as far as it can, smoothly and comfortably, and then goes back to neutral. The weight will shift a little bit on the bottom of your foot. Some of you might notice that there's some kind of change in the contact of your back on the floor, maybe even your shoulders. And if you just feel like I can't move just one leg without the other, or I can't really do this movement, my groin is restricting the movement, well, then you imagine the movement. And your foot stays where it is, and just your leg moving into the midline and back where it was. Play with the least amount of effort possible. Okay, try it with the other leg. See if it has a bit of a different characteristic or behavior on the other side. So now the right leg is quiet and just the left knee moves a little bit into the midline and then back. But keep your foot where it is. Just move your knee. Only as much as you can. Just your knee. That's it. Where's that smooth range of motion? Is there a smooth range of motion? Now see if you can alternate. Bring the right knee in toward the midline and then back, and bring the left knee into the midline and back. It doesn't need to be faster because you're alternating. Just stay focused on doing what you think you're doing. And if you're finding that the movement is challenging, can you get a sense of where the challenge is? What part of you is resisting the movement? And then rest for a moment, either knees bent or legs long. As you're resting, bring your attention back to your breathing. If a deep breath feels like a sweet relief, then you might be working a bit too hard in this lesson. Now just consider, before you do, imagine if you were going to bring your legs back to bent, your feet standing, would you need to press your back into the floor to do that or not? Just think about it before you do it. Imagine how would you have to brace yourself or not with your back in order to bend your knees and stand your feet. And then find out if what you imagined is actually accurate and see how do you do that movement, bending your knees, standing your feet. And then when your feet are standing again, position them again a little bit wider apart. Your knees are still over your ankles, but your knees are a bit wider apart than your hip joints. And then again, go back to just the first leg. Dip the right leg in toward the midline. Some of you have a lot of mobility in that area, your leg might dip down toward the floor. But just the right leg dipping in toward the midline and back to neutral. And keep checking for where can you reduce the effort. Are you engaging in your left thigh or groin as you're moving your right thigh and groin? Keep checking. What are you doing? Now, if this movement feels like something that is requiring a lot of concentration, just to slowly move it in this way, then you might consider continuing moving slowly in this way. If you feel like this is a movement that you can understand, then you might play with this idea of like a little butterfly wing, a little fluttering butterfly wing, and see if you can bring your right knee into the midline and then flutter it just slightly. So it's into the midline, and then a teeny little flutter, 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 flutter. It dips a little bit more toward the midline, a little bit more to the ceiling, but it's just the right leg. And where do you reduce the effort in order to do that movement? And if you're like, what? Then just continue doing the movement slowly. Yeah, so you can bring the leg into the midline, flutter, 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 flutter a few times, and then bring it back to neutral, breathe in and breathe out. Then when you're ready, you can try again the same leg, bring it into the midline, try a little flutter, flutter, flutter. And then rest with that for a moment, knees bent, legs long as you wish. %, in your imagination, bend your knees and stand your feet in your imagination. Can you imagine how you do that? 100% in your imagination, have your feet wider than your hips. And now notice, some of you are going to be visualizing this. Some of you are going to be remembering this. Some of you are going to feel more like you're sensing it. There's not a right way of imagining, but you might notice how you imagine. And imagine that you did the movement of taking your left knee into the midline and back. Just imagining. In your imagination, where do you feel yourself doing that from? %, in your imagination. Sense yourself bringing your left knee into the midline. Keep it inward and flutter. So just imagining where you would feel the support in order to do this light fluttering of the knee. What would you have to release, and where would you need to hold? How would you need to breathe? And then on your own time, again, actually bend your knees and stand your feet. Actually bring your left knee into the midline and away a few times. And then you choose. Is it better for you to continue moving very slowly and trying to free the left leg this way? Maybe you want to play with the fluttering. What we're curious about here is, can you move your left leg independently of your left hip joint? Or when you move your left leg, does it shake your whole spine? Does it bring your ribs? How many parts of yourself can you let go of in order to do this little fluttering? Yeah, and I love some of you are doing it like the most micro amount. Great! Find out for yourself, what is that range that you can free up your left leg enough to just do a little shaking, a little vibrating, without any clenching anywhere else. Note if it was easier on one side or the other side, even to imagine it or to do it. And then leave that and rest just like this with your knees bent, your feet standing. Roll out your head a little bit. Make sure there's no creeping tension anywhere. Feel the way that your spine is making contact with the floor. And pay attention to now when you're breathing, is there any change that you can feel in the way that your back ribs touch the floor? If you take a nice, long, slow inhale, is there a change in the way your back ribs touch the floor? Now situate your feet so that your knees can touch. Adjust where your feet are standing so that your knees touch. So maybe your feet are wide apart, but your knees are together. And then when your knees are together, find out, without stretching, how far apart are your feet. So your feet are as wide apart as they can be without needing to pinch your knees together. Your knees are resting comfortably toward each other. And then interlace your fingers and put them behind your head. Make sure you're not straining before you even do something, right? So you could already see, okay, am I actually anticipating something? Am I readying myself in some way? Can I let my legs just be here? Maybe there's a micro adjustment of where my feet are. Maybe if I turn my feet in more, it's easier for my knees to stay together. Maybe if my feet are out more. And just see, maybe if your feet are closer to your bum or farther away from your bum, where's the place that your knees can stay comfortably touching each other. And then have your elbows alongside your head. And lift your head just as much as you can comfortably and keep it there. Elbows are alongside your head. You use your hands to lift your head. And you can do it a few times, lifting and lowering the head. And sense the way that your upper back supports you as you lift your head. And how far into your low back do you get support as you lift your head? And keep your knees in contact with each other. Keep your feet on the floor. Keep looking for where you can simplify the movement. Relaxing the back of your tongue. It might be softening your eyeballs. And so the movement is so sweet and delicate. It's like you could just keep doing it all day. It's totally reversible. You can come back just as easily as you lift it up. If you feel like you lift and then thud, you have to drop back, you're doing too much. So just this really gentle lifting the head and bringing it back, pausing, lifting the head and bringing it back, pausing. See if you can feel what part of your chest bends when you lift your head. Have your elbows close to your head or pointing to the ceiling. What part of your chest bends? Your front ribs, your collarbones. Maybe your breastbone changes its shape somehow. And then pause with that for a moment. And then, exactly like you just did, have the legs so that the knees are together and the feet are apart. And the hands are comfortably behind your head. You might even change the interlace of your fingers. And your elbows are comfortably reaching toward the ceiling. Not so you're squeezing, but just so they're not wide open. And now this time, lift your head as far as you can comfortably and keep it there. So it might just be a teeny bit off the floor. And imagine that I've come and I've sat down behind you and I've slipped my hands underneath your shoulder blades. Just imagining. And I very gently started to lift you upward from your shoulder blades. And I want you to try to imagine what parts of yourself would naturally engage or respond as I was lifting you from your shoulders. What part of your abdomen? What part of your back? What part of your ribs? And then take a little rest. And feel your contact with the floor. Again, start to listen for the places that you can feel the floor touching you. And also, overall, the way that you allow your weight to go down. If there's some parts of you that feel a little heavier or a little freer, a little less restricted, maybe just something's different, you're not quite sure what's different. And then one last time, have your feet standing with your knees together and your feet apart and your hands interlaced behind your head. Elbows pointing to the ceiling. Have your head lifted only a tiny amount that you can keep it lifted. And then again, completely in your imagination. Yeah, exactly same position, knees together, feet apart. Completely in your imagination. This time, I'm going to come stand in front of you. And I want you to imagine what it would feel like if I started to lift you up from your elbows. And how would that be different from when I was lifting you from your shoulders? Just imagining. And bring your head down, bring your arms down. Take a rest. Listen for the feeling of your breathing. Listen for the feeling of your breathing. Does your breathing move your abdomen? Does it move your chest? Does it move your back ribs? Does it move your low back? And now let's start to investigate what might be transpiring. Let's come back to the very first movement. Bend your knees and stand your feet. Cross your right ankle over your left knee. Hold on to the bottom of your right foot with your left hand. Put your right hand behind your head. And don't do your best work. It's the end of the lesson. You just want to be very lazy. Just see, how does it feel now to do the movement of lifting your leg and lifting your head simultaneously? Is there anything that's different about how you're doing that or how that feels? Left foot is standing on the floor. You're just lifting the right leg and lifting your head. Just do it a couple times, investigate, and then switch sides. Don't attach to what's happening. Just notice. And then switch arms and hands and legs. And a few times on this side as you lift the head, slowly, gently lift your left leg. Keep your right foot on the floor. That's it. There you go. Use your hand, not your neck. Use the hand behind your head to lift your head. That's it. Yeah? Good. Okay. And then leave that, roll over to your side, come back to the sitting position. Imagine that your right lower leg was a little child that you wanted to scoop up in your arms and hold or maybe it's a little animal, little cat that you want to hold in your arms. Hold on to your right knee from the outside. Yeah, exactly. And then a few times just find out, how do you lift your right leg as you bring your head forward, and how your pelvis rolls and how your back bends, and just, what it feels like. Yeah. Maybe you can feel your chest softening. And see if it feels any easier or any clearer. Yeah, and then, again, don't give it a lot of thought. Just switch legs and see how it goes on this side. Lifting your left leg in the direction of your head, bringing your head in the direction of your left leg. Feeling which vertebra bend, where your chest bends, where the weight shifts. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then bring your foot down and roll onto your back. Roll down onto your back, stand your feet again. Lift your right leg up to the ceiling, keep your left foot on the floor. And see how it goes now to make a circle with your right leg. Is that any smoother, any clearer, any easier? Maybe your circle is significantly a different size than it was before. Yeah. And then leave it and check the other leg. Maybe there's changes, maybe there's not. Again, that's just kind of the cherry on top, right? The lesson is about the process of learning, not about if there's big, gross changes, right? That's it. That's it. And then leave it and lengthen yourself out and feel your contact overall with the floor. go back to the data you collected at the beginning of the lesson when you were first observing yourself in standing and walking and then laying down. And sense yourself now laying down and what you can feel as the same, what you can feel as different. And now, like I said at the beginning of the lesson, what's particularly interesting is your organization once you're standing. So roll to your side, come up to sit and to stand, and I would suggest standing on the hard floor instead of the mat. And then when you're ready, really take your time with this. I'm going to go get the smoothie ready, and you have time to explore. If you want to get back on the floor, do something else, you want to get back on the floor and rest. But do take a little bit of time observing yourself walking, even if it's on the mats, off the mats, up the stairs, off the stairs. Spend the next 4 or 5 minutes to yourself before you kind of jump back into engaging with the world again. And that's it. Thank you.